Get my 6, my pretties.
Well, that was different, wasn't it? Different opening. Guys, this whole video is going to be different than the way we usually do things. Special treat, perhaps. Perhaps not. Potentially, if you enjoy it. I'm sitting at my desk right now in my office, which is one of the spare bedrooms upstairs. And this is my view. I want to share my view with you during the entirety of this video. Now, just because I'm in the house, and just because you're seeing my pond over here, doesn't mean that you may or may not see him, her, it, or they. There have been times I've been outside sitting on the front porch at night, like in the summer, and I've heard what just sounds like something getting out of the water. It's really weird. I've never heard anything get in the water, but I hear sounds like something stepping out of the water and then walk away. Oh, it's creepy. One night I was out there on the front porch and I felt like I was just being watched. And so I did have a flashlight with me, and so I turned it on, and there were 3 red foxes sitting right on the other side of the pond just staring at me. Now, of course, they could see in the dark. I couldn't. So they were just 3 red foxes sitting there staring at me while I was sitting on the front porch in the dark, enjoying the night air, watching the fireflies. And then twice last summer, I was out there at about midnight, sitting in the dark, and I heard I heard a bobcat screaming from somewhere off in the distance. So get my 6, okay? Now, here's what's going on. I am announcing to you that Bigfoot Sasquatch Files Volume 4 has been officially submitted to Amazon. So within probably 12 hours of the publishing of this video, that book should be available in ebook format. And it usually takes up to 24 hours after that for it to be available in print. But good news, this weekend, I'm making this video on a Friday, probably by Saturday, it'll be available in ebook, and probably by no later than Sunday, hopefully, it'll be available in print. Bigfoot Sasquatch Files Volume 4. Now, in this video, I'm going to do something different, okay? I didn't read any of the stories from Bigfoot Sasquatch Files 3 on YouTube. I think maybe one from Volume 2 was on the channel. And the reason I was doing that is because I wanted to make sure that our viewers who actually were spending their hard-earned money on these books was getting something of value in return. Not just the same old story they heard on YouTube before, but actually something new, something originally that they hadn't heard. And that was never in any way to make you have to buy the books to hear the stories or to punish people who weren't buying the books. Guys, we're grateful for each and every single one of you who watch our videos. We know not everybody has the extra money. I mean, it's $3 for the ebook version. It's $7 for the print copy. It's not a lot of money, but at times it is when you don't have it, when you don't have the extra. I get that, okay? So it was never in any way, shape, or form to punish anyone or to be greedy. But I've had so many people comment, and even when they put their book reviews up on Amazon, they say, they mention about how I write like I talk, and when they read my books, they hear my voice in their head, and they've told me they wished I would actually read some of these stories on the channel so they could hear the stories told in my voice. And at first I was like, what? But then I thought about it. My beautiful bride, Dearly, aka Giggly Girl, she's read some of my books, but she actually prefers it when I read them to her, because she likes the stories being told in my voice. So I get that. And I've decided we're going to read several of the stories from October Nights, 31 Tales for the Halloween season, during the month of October. So today, this evening, on this video, I'm going to read you the first of what is many short stories in the novella-length long Bigfoot Sasquatch Files Volume 4, right here on the channel, okay? So if you do get the book, you can skip the first story because I'm going to read it to you now, unless if you do want to go back and read it yourself. It's one of the shorter stories in the book, so it shouldn't take too long. It's a story called Poached, which was originally titled The Unfortunate Demise of Old Man Singer. Now, these unfortunate demise stories are kind of like a running theme we have with these Bigfoot Sasquatch Files volumes. Normally I just put one in each volume, but there's like 3 of these stories in this one. There was just so many people that they just had it coming. So this is probably the closest. This story is closestly appropriate for this platform. There is some adult language. I'm going to change it during this reading. I'm going to just use initials for the bad words, or maybe change it to a different word that you will know what it meant. And here's why. That's how people talk. I mean, that's just how people talk. Old Man Singer, one of the characters in our story here, he was not a good guy. I mean, he wasn't, you'll see, but he cussed. And so therefore, to write these stories, because I had some people complain about that. Listen, I'm a writer, okay, and I'm a good one. And I say that not from a standpoint of arrogance, but from a standpoint of somebody who's done it for 30 plus years, and who used to be a weak writer because he was afraid that, oh no, what if somebody that thinks highly of me reads this book I wrote and I have a bad word in it? Will they think less highly of me? You can't do that. That's not real, it's not honest, and it's weak writing. I refuse to do that. So with this said, I'm reading this off my laptop, so you're going to have to bear with me here. And one of our viewers suggested I get these really neat reading glasses that block out the blue light from the computer. I think it was one of our Debbies. It was very, very good suggestion. It's been very helpful, so thank you. So with no further ado, this is the first book from the soon-to-be available Bigfoot Sasquatch Files Volume 4, a story called Poached, originally titled The Unfortunate Demise of Old Man Singer, because some stories are so good they're worthy of 2 titles, and all of these unfortunate demise stories fit that category. Okay, so here we go. My first run-in with Old Man Singer came when I was about 12 years old. My childhood friends and I were sleigh riding on the steep road that ran up the hill leading to Old Man Singer's home. The road was steep, and when it snowed and the road iced over, we could fly down it on our steel runners. It was the steepest hollow in our small community, or as we pronounced it in Appalachistan, the steepest holler. Appalachistan, it's the semi-autonomous socioeconomic region that makes up West Virginia, Kentucky, Northern Tennessee, and Southwest Virginia. Okay, sometimes I create words, sometimes I create places, but that's where Appalachistan is, okay? It's got a very unique culture, that area there. So I just call it Appalachistan. You boys can stop this nonsense right now, or I can call the law on you. Which is it going to be? It was Old Man Singer. He'd pulled over in the wide spot beside the road where we always burned an old car tire to stay warm when we went sleigh riding. Yes, I hate to admit this all these years later, but we had no idea at the time that we were poisoning the world by doing it. It was Appalachistan. He held a burning cigarette in his hand, and he must have smoked them one right after another, because when he rolled down his window to threaten us, smoke came barreling out of it. F you, Singer, my buddy Billy yelled. You call the law on us, and I'll tell him about that doe I saw you shoot last summer. Them GD blades on them GD sleds make this road slicker than greased owl poo, you little poos. That's pretty good, switching them words like that on the fly like that, no? Now stop or I'ma call the law. Call him, you old... real bad word. Billy yelled back. We'll see who gets rode up. With that, Old Man Singer stuck his cigarette in his mouth and cussed at us a little more while he cranked up the window on his old four-wheel drive Suburban, and then off he went, up the hollow to his home, and he didn't seem to have any problems getting up the hill, despite the fact that we'd been sleigh riding on it for hours. He had chains on his tire like most of the folks who lived up the hollow. There weren't many houses up there, but if the folks who did live up there wanted to get in and out during the winter, they knew to use chains. Who was that? I asked Billy. Old Man Singer, he said, like I was supposed to know who Old Man Singer was. Then he spit into the fire. He lifted a box of his old man's skull again. Sure, I tried it. It made me puke. But not Billy. He loved the stuff. Who's Old Man Singer? I asked, realizing Billy had no intentions of enlightening me further if I didn't. The biggest GD poacher in the county, Billy said. And yes, 12-year-old kids in Appalachistan really do speak that way. Heck, I'm sure 12-year-old kids everywhere speak that way when grown-ups aren't around. How do you know? I asked. I seen him kill a doe in his dang front yard last summer, Billy said. Went home and told Dad, and he said he does it all the time. Everyone knows about it. Why don't he get in no trouble, I asked. No one gives a crap around here, Billy said, and his answer was sufficient. We lived in a small town in the middle of nowhere in the middle of Appalachistan. Everyone knew everyone else, and most of the people who lived there were related to each other. The authorities didn't give a crap about a deer or 6 being killed out of season, especially when it was your third cousin twice removed and a third time removed again by way of marriage doing the killing. I'd later asked my father about Old Man Singer when we were out hunting the following fall, and he filled in a lot of the gaps that Billy had left out. He likes to go spotlighting, my father said. Spotlighting is a highly illegal form of deer hunting in which one goes out at night and shines a bright, powerful spotlight out into the fields or into the woods looking for the eyeshine of a deer. Deer, just like when they see headlights from a car, will totally freeze up when they see the spotlight. The hunter, rather the poacher, then shoots the deer while it's just standing there, staring into the light. Last I checked, it's a method that's illegal in all states. He'll bury the deer under the snow, my father said, and then come back and get him the next day. Make it look like he killed him that morning. That way he doesn't run the risk of the game warden catching him at night. He's been known to set out traps too, which isn't even legal around here, my father continued. Basically, he hunts year-round and he follows no hunting laws. How come he doesn't get in trouble, I asked. No one gives a crap around here, he said. He and Billy were on the same page in that regard. Years would pass. I'd grow up and leave Appalachistan, but I remember getting word by way of Billy, now living on the West Coast, and doing quite well for himself. I promised I wouldn't out him as far as what he's doing, because many of you reading this, or hearing me read it to you, would know who he is, trust me. But what I will say is he's come a long way since being that cursing and tobacco-spitting 12-year-old hillbilly kid back in Appalachistan. He quit chewing years ago, and he never took up smoking or drinking. Found him ripped to shreds, Billy told me over the phone when he'd called with the news. A bear? I asked. Nope, Billy said. What was it? I asked. No one knows, he said. Aren't they going to investigate further? I asked. Nope, Billy said. Why not? I asked. No one gives a crap around there, he said, and his answer was sufficient. But I went back the following summer and investigated myself. I talked to a few of his family members, and I spoke with the conservation officer who had found his body. At least what was left of his body. Everyone seemed pretty convinced that a B-word named Karma had paid Old Man Singer a visit out in those woods, but no one was convinced Karma had come in the form of a bear. When I pressed harder and asked about a particular creature that's not supposed to exist, I got doors slammed in my face, but not before being given looks that said, "Oh my God, that's exactly what I thought." From the bits and pieces of information I gathered, and from hiking out into the woods where it all went down and searching around myself, this is how I believe Old Man Singer met his unfortunate demise. Old Man Singer had been getting paranoid in his old age. Sure, he'd poached his whole life, just like his daddy before him and his daddy's daddy before that. Poaching was a long-running family tradition in the Singer family, and he'd never been caught. But he didn't trust those conservation officers as much as he used to. Too many millennials of age now filling such job positions, and every dang one of them out to be nice to everyone and everything, including animals. Heck, Singer thought, if the good Lord hadn't wanted us all eating animals, he would have made them out of styrofoam instead of meat. But those dang millennials must all think the meat they ate grew in a garden somewhere. Singer had gotten away from taking his rifles out into the middle of the woods and just blasting away at the wildlife in the middle of summer. He no longer wanted to take the risk of one of those young conservation officers hearing the shots or have someone else report the shots, so he'd upped his trapping game. Singer used the most horrific jaw-type bear traps in existence, but he didn't use them to trap bears. He used them to trap deer. He'd take a solid number 16 Duke trap, the springs of which were compressed with more than 500 pounds of pressure each, and then bury the trap in half a bag of cracked corn. It never took long for a hungry deer to be caught in the trap while feeding on the corn, and once caught, it couldn't free itself. Singer would show up the next day and club the thing to death with a baseball bat he always carried into the woods with him for such purposes. If anyone were to ever ask, he'd claim the bat was for self-defense. So many hippies out there smoking pot in the woods these days, he'd tell them. And God knows how violent people get when they're on the marijuana. But no one ever asked, because no one gave a crap around there. But Singer always had his story ready. Singer had gone out to check one of his traps on the day of his unfortunate demise. But once he got to the spot where he'd lain it out, it wasn't there. Nor was the corn he'd buried it in. There were a few kernels here and there, so he could tell something had eaten it, but there was absolutely no sign of his trap whatsoever. Further, there was no sign that maybe a large animal, like a bear, had gotten caught in the trap and managed to walk off, dragging the trap along with it. Singer got down on his knees and studied the ground where he'd staked the trap's chain. He had pounded the iron rod into the ground pretty deep, but it was gone as well. It looked like someone had simply pried it right up out of the ground and taken it, rod, chain, trap, and all. Crap, Singer said aloud, having a sudden flash of insight. GD conservation officer got it. The level of Singer's paranoia reached new heights. Probably recording me right now on one of them GD hidden trail cams. Singer stood slowly and looked all around, turning a full circle as he did. First, he looked at ground level, and then he spun a full 360 and looked at eye level. One more turn while looking up, and he was convinced there were no cameras, and he almost fell down from making himself dizzy. He badly wanted to pull a cigarette out and light up, but he knew that if one of those millennial B words were in the woods waiting on him, he'd give away his position with the scent of the smoke. As hard as it was, he put off the urge to smoke and began slowly, cautiously, and paranoidly as heck, making his way out of the woods. He'd only gone a few yards before noticing a pack of cigarettes lying on the forest floor. He thought, there they are. He'd had them with him the day before when he'd come out to set the trap, but he didn't have them when he'd gotten back to his truck. Must have fallen out of my pocket, he said to himself. Singer bent over to pick up the box of Newports, and just as he touched the box, the mighty Duke No. 16 jaw trap closed on his forearm, breaking it instantly, the teeth of the trap deeply piercing his skin. "Ah!" he screamed, and the echoes from his scream bounced back from all the different mountaintops from every direction all around him. He never saw what took his head off. He was too busy screaming and being in agonizing pain, but the pain didn't last long, because at least the one hunting him, poaching rather, as traps are illegal in the area for any reason, was more humane in regard to a quick kill than Singer had ever been. But after that, well, the thing just had fun ripping Singer's limbs off his body, years of rage finally being let loose. They found the trap with Singer's arm in it 2 days later. His wife had reported him missing, but only because the Singers were a one-vehicle family and she needed to run off the mountain and go into town, but she couldn't very well do that without the truck. They found one of his legs a couple 100 yards away from his arm and the trap, but the boot had been taken off. The other leg was never found. His torso appeared to have had 2 giant hands shoved right into it, and his rib cage had been ripped clean open, the same way someone might open a package from Amazon. The oddest thing of it all, and this is what piqued my curiosity enough to actually go back to Appalachistan after being gone all these years and investigate this event, was that Old Man Singer's boots were found a few months later, during deer season, by an actual legal deer hunter. They were sitting together beside a stream, as if someone had simply taken them off to wade in the water. The hunter claimed to have noticed them in the morning when he'd first entered the woods. He left them at the time, assuming their owner was nearby. But when he saw them at the same place on his way out of the woods that evening, he decided to take them with him. Upon doing so, he noticed they were covered in what appeared to be dried blood. He assumed the blood might be from an animal, perhaps killed by another hunter, but he decided to turn the boots into the authorities anyway. As it turned out, they belonged to Old Man Singer, who had been mangled by someone or something of great strength almost 15 miles away the summer before. Despite the finding of Old Man Singer's boots by the stream, nearly 15 miles away, and despite there being no animal native to the area which possessed the ability to rip a man's limbs off in such a fashion, except for a really large black bear, and despite a few pleas from Mrs. Singer to investigate the unfortunate demise of Old Man Singer further, no one ever did, because no one gives a crap around there. The end. Bigfoot Sasquatch Files Volume 4, this weekend available in Kindle and print on Amazon. Check it out. See you next time.